Good evening, good afternoon, whenever you are listening or watching. Welcome to the Life's Important Questions podcast. I'm your host, Miles Grant, asking life's really, really important questions. Obviously, we're living in a very challenging time at this moment. At the time of doing this broadcast, we're in the middle of the pandemic. And so the purpose of this show is to ask some really important questions. You know, life, I find, especially social media, you get a lot of answers. And the purpose of this show is actually to ask, instead of giving answers, is to ask life's important questions. So welcome to the show. If you're watching on Facebook, or if you're watching on LinkedIn, if you're watching on YouTube and you're watching live, give me a like, say hello, let me know that you're here. If you're listening on the podcast, on the replay, make sure you hit subscribe for further episodes. So welcome to the show. This one's a really important one because I've had a question come in this week from Steve in Peterborough. Steve has asked a question. Well, he started with a statement. Got a message in this week. I've lost my income. He's got a chain of hairdressers, and obviously they've been closed due to COVID. And he said, obviously, my income's gone to zero due to COVID. Obviously, he's got a plan in place. But at the moment, you know, he's at ground zero. Things are all closed. And even though he knows that there's a point where he's going to be able to reopen, mentally, I think it's the last year has really taken its toll on him. And he's considering his next kind of moves. So Steve has said, I've lost my income due to COVID. How can I move forward? So, look, this episode especially is relevant for anyone who has been impacted financially as a result of COVID. This is going to be a really important episode to help you to ensure that you know how to kind of COVID-proof your income, because there is a very good possibility that we will have another pandemic. There's a very good possibility that we will have some form of pandemic-like situation could potentially happen again. And so the purpose of this episode is to ensure that you have some really common sense, but not necessarily common practice things that you must consider doing if you're not doing already to help you to move forward. If you've been financially affected, you might not even be at zero, but if you've been financially affected by COVID, then this episode is going to be a really, really important one. So first, I want to kind of start by giving some context as to how I can relate to this from Steve in Peterborough. Obviously, our situations are very different, but March 2020, I was in the events business. I was presenting seminars and hotels in all different towns and cities around the country. It was a great business. I was a private consultant for 3 or 4 different clients running seminars on property and Forex and internet marketing. And it was a great position I was in. I was working long days, but working 7-8 days a month, earning an income that was 4 or 5 times what I'd earned in a salary before. And obviously that income went to zero very quickly overnight. And obviously me and Mrs. Grant sat down and had a long conversation after I had a few days of sulking and head in hands and wondering what we were going to do. We had a serious conversation, some tough love, and went to work on rebuilding and specifically building a coaching business that was COVID proof. I said, right, the next business I want to build, I want to make sure that it can run online anywhere in the world. And if a pandemic were to happen again, or this thing goes on for years, which in fact it has actually turned out, that will be secure and that we'll be able to operate, and I'll be able to provide a living that means that I can pay the bills and buy nappies for our 18-month-old baby. That was probably my primary concern. And obviously job world was drying up by the second because things were closing down by the minute. So I knew that that wasn't really an option either. And I was able to replace the lost income in I worked it out actually specifically 102 days. So I don't tell you that to kind of boast or brag, but I tell you that because there's 3 fundamental things that I did when I got that message from Steve, I thought, well, what were the key things that I did when I lost all my income last March 2020? What did I do in the 102 days that turned back into replacing the lost income? So I'm going to share those with you now. So the first one, which is probably I'd say all of these points are things that they're not logical things. They're very, very common sense, but they're not common practice. I have clients that will, I'll get on the phone, I'll have a one-to-one with them, and they're not in maybe in the right headspace, and they want to solve a problem. And the first thing I do is I do this, which is the first thing you got to do if you're, especially for Steve, and if you've been impacted financially by COVID, the first thing that you have to do, which is the thing that nobody, 99% of people do not do first when they have a problem come in, is you've got to manage what I call your state system. So the first thing you've got to do is what I call manage your state system. What does that mean? Well, to use Tony Robbins' world for a second, Tony always talks about state is everything. And if you want to learn how to master your emotions, you've got to learn how to manage and master your state. Now, the simple way of explaining how to do that is to change first your physiology. So, for example, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine a few years ago rang me and said, I said, "How you doing?" He said, "I'm feeling depressed." And I said, "Have you exercised today?" And he said, "No." I said, "What kind of exercise do you like doing?" He said, "Well, I do like running, but I've got a bit of a bad knee." I said, "Okay, could you go for a walk?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, go for a walk and then call me back." He was like, "But I called you for a chat." I said, "I know you did, but go for a walk and I'll be here. So go for 20 minutes and call me back." So he went out for his walk. 20 minutes later, called me back. I said, "How are you doing now?" He went, "A lot better, actually." And so the point is, as a coach and a good friend of mine, Tony V, hey Tony, if you're watching, says often the problem is not the problem. The problem is what's behind the problem. So you see, when for me, COVID happened and my income went to zero, the first thing I had to make sure I had in place was a state system. I had to make sure, you've got to make sure that you're in the right state to solve the problem. So many people try and solve a problem in a low energy, and it's very difficult to do that. So the first thing that you've got to do, Steve, and the first thing that anybody's got to do if you're listening and you're in a tough spot right now and all seems lost and you don't know how to move forward, is you've got to have a state system. One of the things I do with my clients, we do in our weekly coaching, is we do what we call an energizer, where we do kind of rapid breathing in through the nose. We do some clapping and running on the spot for about 20 seconds, and we elevate the heart rate really high, really fast. And then I get everybody to sit back down, and we do that 3 or 4 times in a coaching session. And the reason why we do that is because it's very easy to just intellectually take in information, but to actually integrate information and apply it, you need to be in a great state. So what I'm ultimately saying here is the first thing you've got to do to, when all seems lost, when you're not feeling good about yourself, when you're depressed, when you're worried about your future, is you've got to go, what state am I in right now? And anytime I'm feeling low, down, in a mood, negative, I take myself in the kitchen and I do an energizer for as long as it takes till I'm in a better state. I know very few people that can do 50 jumping jacks in their kitchen that start off in a bad mood, that are still in a bad mood at the end of those jumping jacks. I know you show me a person that will do 50 jumping jacks and still be in a bad mood after. I'm yet to find anyone. I would love to put money against that. That's not possible, because your physiology changes, which what that does is that reduces the cortisol in the body and then produces more of the kind of serotonin, the happy hormone. I think that's the right word, which makes you feel good. So state system, really, really important. If you want more help with that, send me a message. I can let you know about how I can help you through our coaching programs. Second thing you've got to do when you don't know how to move forward and all seems lost, and you've maybe lost your income or you've had a loss and you feel stuck, is you've got to do what I call a mission reevaluation. The second thing that I did at the start of COVID 2020 is I did what I call a mission reevaluation. What that effectively is I sat down, I put pen to paper, and I made a decision as to what my mission is going to be moving forward. I wrote things down like how I want to show up as a husband. I want to be an example and a role model to Sati. I wrote down I want to be an example and a role model to Sage. I want to set an example that when life gets tough, her dad stepped up his game. When life got tough, her dad kind of brought his A game. So I think one of the best things that you can do, Steve, if you've got kids, is you can think about if your kids in the future are going through a tough spot in their life that's similar to what you're going through now, how would you want them to deal with that? Like if you had to summarize the best version of them in that situation, how would you describe it? And then go do that, right? Then go live that. So the second thing you got to do is you got to evaluate, what is my mission? How do you want to show up in the world? What kind of characteristics do you want to show up? Do you want to be like a warning in this situation? So many people out of work, losing their job, complaining about I had somebody on the phone with me yesterday, and they said, yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm finding it really tough. What about you? I was like, I see this as a challenge. And they were like, really? I was like, yeah, because if I can get through COVID-19, if I can make my business thrive, if I can thrive emotionally, spiritually, physically in COVID-19, unless it's like world war, nuclear war, like the only way's up. If you can make it through this, you can make it through anything. And he was like, I've not thought of it that way. I'm like, I see this as a game. Now, I'm not insulting. That's not intentionally designed to be disrespectful. This COVID-19 is not a game. People are dying left, right, and center. This is not a game. But my world, in our little Astoria Drive where we live, I've decided to go, this is a game. And I want to play the game of being an example and a role model to my 18-month-old daughter and my wife. And I'm going to show them that I can make a business thrive and work in this economy, because then I know that whatever happens after this is a winter. Whatever happens after this is going to be a summer, right? It's going to be inevitably whatever happens in life after this. If you can get through this mentally, you can get through anything. So you've got to really reevaluate how you want to be, how you want to show up, Steve, in this situation. What would the best version of you do in this situation, and then be that, right? And then be that. And then the last thing, this is the most important one of all. This is the one that is the secret sauce that got me through 2020 and really helped me to bounce back, recover lost income, have a better financial year than I've ever had before, in a way that was ethical, served others, totally aligned with my values. Is you've got to exercise your faith muscles. You've got to exercise your faith muscles. Sometime around the middle of March 2020, where we live, we've got beautiful fields where we live, cows and sheep and all this kind of stuff, right? And I'll never forget, I went to one of the fields where we live. The sun, it was like 6 a.m. The sun was high in the sky, and I was stood there just kind of basking in the sun. And for some strange reason, unbeknownst to me, which is now evidently clear, I decided to have a conversation out loud with God. Never done it before. But I stood there in the sun in that field, and I, for a moment, just said, God, firstly, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be alive and allowing me to be here today. But I'm in a bit of a tough spot. My income's gone, and I don't know what to do. And I don't know if you're out there. I said, I don't know if you're listening, but I'm asking for help. I'm asking for guidance. I'd love you to tell me what to do. I'd love you to show me the way I should go. And if you tell me what to do, I promise I'll do it to the best of my ability. Something along those lines. In the days that followed, things started to become clearer. I got more clarity. My coaching business started to build momentum. Things started to happen. People started to move towards me. Started to produce content. People were engaging with that. And then all of a sudden, 1 or 2 people are enrolling in coaching, 3 or 4, and then it was 20, and then it was 30, and then it was 40, and it was 50, and then it scaled into a group model, and it just kind of grew from there. But the key thing is, for me, the icing on the cake, the real secret sauce of everything that got me through 2020, and that I believe will help you moving forward, is you got to exercise your faith muscles. Now, for me, I'm here. I've got my Bible. I've got my cross here. You don't need to be Christian. You don't need to be of any sort of religious choice or following. You can be an atheist. But I do believe that having courage and having the courage to have some faith that something is out there that is bigger than you, something out there created all this, that's watching over us, that's observing us in like a Truman Show fashion, that something is out there that if you just ask for guidance out loud and have a little faith and trust that, as cliche as it sounds, that everything truly does in fact happen for a reason, and that life is happening for you, not to you. If you can truly believe that, no, let me reword that. If you can know that that's true, and that there is something out there, that there's a higher power that is serving you, that is doing this by design, and it isn't trying to mess with you, and it isn't trying to create problems for you, but it's actually trying to help you grow. I always say, God only gives me what he knows I can handle. I would say God only gives me what he knows he can handle. So if you believe that something out there somehow is giving you this challenge because he, she, the, whatever it is, whatever you believe, is doing it by design because it knows that you can handle it. And I believe that adopting that way of looking at your world and exercising your faith muscles, whether it's talking to God or even just talking out loud to yourself, if that's what it feels like, and just asking for wisdom and for guidance, and then allowing your heart or your gut to kind of tell you what your next move should be. If you allow that kind of wisdom, that kind of intuition, from my experience of the past 12 months, it will liberate you from doubt, from worry, from anxiety. And it will help you, because even in the darkest times, you'll know that something, somewhere, someone has got your back. So that is the key, really, is that exercising the faith muscles. So 3 things, Steve especially, and everybody else that's listening or watching on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and on podcast. 3 things when you've lost your income or you're going through a really tough spot and you don't know what to do. 3 things to do. Number 1, you need a state system, exercise, changing your physical body, rapid breathing, meditation, going for a walk, going for a jog, yoga. All of those things will help to create a better state within you. Number 2, mission reevaluation. You've got to reevaluate what you stand for. How do you want to be? What kind of role model do you want to be? See this as an opportunity for growth, and see this as a chance for you to become a better version of yourself. And number 3, exercise your faith muscles. See this as a chance for you to reconnect with something that's much bigger than just you and the world. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Life's Important Questions. If you have, give me a share. That'd be great. You share it. Make sure you subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Big love. Take care.